Hello and welcome back, everyone. Flavor Friday on a Tuesday. Today we are going to be covering the flavor for Sweden in the upcoming game Project Caesar. We have a bit to go through, and so without further ado, let's get into it. We are greeted, of course, by Johan, and we have reason to believe that he has been kidnapped yet again. Hello and welcome. That, of course, is or it is capitalized welcome, so we have to look for the hidden messages in here. We know that we are not doing well because we have been kidnapped. To another Tinto flavor. This time, I have been forced to write it. Everyone knows that the worst kind of torture you can give to someone who's been kidnapped is forcing them to write copy. As I'm the one responsible for the country, we will learn today, and here is our third hint. We were not wished a happy salutation of any kind. Not a Flavor Tuesday, not a Flavor Friday on a Tuesday, not a Happy Tuesday, nothing. Johan is in danger. But, continuing on, today we are going to delve into all the fun flavor you get from playing Sweden. But prior to that, remember to wishlist, and you can, of course, go on the Steam and wishlist this upcoming game, which is going to be, its codename was Project Caesar. They are insisting that it's Europa Universalis 5. We know that this is really just an anagram. Who would name a game Europa Universalis 5? And then also do a whole bunch of press release and, visual graphical stuff on Europa Universalis 5 if it were not just a ruse for the obvious, anagram which Europa Universalis 5 recommends, a far more likely name for a game, Previous Rune Saliva. But, with Previous Rune Saliva, we will have to settle ourselves for it being called Europa Universalis 5 for now, much like how it was called Project Caesar before, or if you were cultured, Project Kaiser. So, let's continue on. Sweden is a feudal kingdom under the rule of Magnus Eriksson. Okay, let's close this out in case it's playing music. Who also holds the crown of Norway. Skane was bought from the impoverished Danes a few years ago. Our realm is vast, but sparsely populated, and mostly covered by forests. Inside these forests, riches of iron and copper remain hidden, but can soon be exploited to enrich our country. We do love using exploitation to enrich our country. Mostly Catholic Swedes, but there are plenty of different Finnish people as well. We can see Swedish and mostly Catholic. Even a few Norse pagans live in the inland forest. The king is not only ugly, the truth hurts, but also has shitty stats. 33033 is a bit boring numbers though. Feel free to suggest any fitting numbers within plus minus 10 of it. I posit, and you guys can feel free to lead feedback, that we give him the only negative stat line. 23 minus 10, 23. A stat line to fit his jawline. Am I right? Okay. Continuing on, we do have a little bit of a map, and something I would like to note is you can start colonizing this stuff right away. We did get to play a little bit of Europa Universalis 5, and of course mean Previous Rune Saliva, and when we played the game, we got to... we played for a little bit, and so this is going to texture some of our commentary, because we're going to comment a little bit on balance and what we think is good, what we think is maybe not so good. But it's on a large map, very different from the modern borders of the country. Sweden starts with a relatively powerful commoners estate, as they are both represented in the Riksdag and have the privilege to freely move. This is going to be quite strong. I really do think leaning into the commoners in particular is really strong, giving them a ton of privileges. Privileges are effectively nerfed because crown power has gotten better, but with the commoners specifically, their satisfaction. So the satisfaction of an estate informs its satisfaction of its constituent pops. For the commoners, this includes peasants. And peasants make up the majority of your country's population. And so when you increase the satisfaction, you increase the satisfaction of all the peasant pops, and you increase the average satisfaction disproportionately in locations. And so this is one of the reasons I think it's really good. But also, they tend not to have a lot of power. You can see this, 11 power. So giving them a bunch of estates gives them a percentage modifier on their flat number of power. Their flat power is just kind of low, so giving them a big percentage modifier, not too big a deal. We could take a look at a unique estate for the commoners, or the unique privilege for the estate of the commoners, rather, which is going to give 5% happiness and 50% power. And without anything else, this would probably be worth it on the version we received. Kind of expecting to see a little bit of a nerf, but maybe we won't. And on top of that, we get food production plus 10%, levy combat efficiency plus 5%. This one requires quite a lot of crown power to remove, and while it's active, you cannot remove free mobility and the representation in Parliament either. I don't see in the UI where it says that, but I will take him as a word. Luckily, a bit more food and better fighting levies is not all that bad. I also think that getting representation of commoners in Parliament is just kind of, it seemed to me to just be like strictly good, because they will have requests, and some of these requests are good, and so just increasing the density of requests you have in a Parliament sometimes lets you pass good things, and overall will just allow you to push through things you want in Parliament more, because you will have access to a little bit more kind of debate power, whatever the juice is that you kind of need to kind of pass. But in particular, an example of something that is just kind of positive that you want an opportunity to do is you can push up societal values when doing the debate in the Parliament. And so something the commoners might request is free subjects, a movement towards free subjects of like 2 or 5. If you like the free subject societal value, which I think is good, because it gives you pop promotion speed, which is a pretty strong modifier, then you can use the peasants, the fact that they are in the Parliament, to be able to push that societal value up. And so this is going to give you opportunities to shape your nation in a positive way. So I think having them in a Parliament is a positive thing. But continuing on, Sweden also has access to the unique cabinet action that can be done in any provinces of Norland and Finland that have a total population of less than 10,000 people. So a relatively strict kind of requirement, but it does look like quite a strong one. This is to simulate the insane population growth that Finland had during the 14th and 15th century, which was the highest in the world at the time. 10,000 pops is kind of a lot. I imagine a lot of locations are sub 10,000 pops, but what we're getting is migration attraction 0.25. This is substantially less than the migration attraction cabinet action by itself, but monthly development 0.01. That is going to be kind of probably doubling the monthly development in a lot of places. And then population growth 2%. That is an extremely strong modifier. It is normally hard to get over 2% with all the modifiers you stack, and so be able to get 2% on top of that is going to allow you to explode in population. I'm curious to know whether you can run more than one of these, or if you can only run one of these at a time, but this does look really tall. But this also could texture our play as Sweden, because one of the things your cabinet is pulled towards is incorporating locations and converting their culture. And also, Sweden doesn't really have that many good expansion spots. I think the capital's around here, so we don't really have any territory near us whatsoever that we can take off of other people, so it'll be hard to establish control over them. So Sweden might have a expansion style in the very early game that's actually incredibly passive, because you can't get too much done. You can get subjects out and about, and this is probably what you do, subjugate Norway, Denmark, these types of things, but your expansion in terms of you taking stuff and incorporating it is maybe not going to be so good, because you don't really have good opportunities as it relates to getting good control. And what you also have is something that is a pretty good cabinet action, which would strain your kind of cabinet action slots if you were to try and be incorporating places and converting culture while simultaneously trying to support new farms. So in terms of playstyle, it might be a little bit more inward facing, at least initially, for the first 100 years or so. While Sweden does not start with any works of art, it has unique bonuses in Falun, where the Great Copper Mountain gives a ton of extra copper per laborer working there. And this plus 250% is an insane modifier. Now, you might get other copper modifiers that kind of dilute what we're about to say, but without any other modifiers, this makes this copper mine better than gold in terms of the value it's outputting. Because I think copper has a base price of 3, gold has a base price of 10. So normally, you produce a level of gold mine that's plus 10 to your tax base before calculating in control. Or market access. So with the copper mine, it's plus 3. But if you get plus 250% on top of that, 2.5 times 3, right, is going to be 7.5, plus the base price of 3 is going to be 10.5. So it's actually going to be more valuable than a gold mine. But not only that, it also can let you have a bit of an advantage in stuff that copper goes into, because you're getting copper so cheaply. You are going to drop the price of copper because expanding the copper mine is going to be really profitable even if it has like minus 50% price, because 5.25 is still a lot to receive from a copper mine. So you will plunge down the copper price, which will make stuff like your tools and your weapons, which use copper as an input, or cannons even, way more profitable, which is kind of an interesting thing. And we will see that they also have an advance later that leans you into tools a little bit. We will see the unit cavalry unit we get in the Age of Absolutism, and very kindly, we do have the kind of important part, which is going to be the differences between this and the base cavalry. +5 initiative, it gets into battle faster, 10% movement speed, 1 combat speed relative to the regular cavalry units of this age. And I do think that perhaps there's going to be an interesting minigame as it relates to people having a really sweaty PvP. And what I think that minigame might be is you having tons of little armies for kind of 2 reasons. One, for cutting the supply lines of others, although I think that the presence of a lot of forts might decrease this in terms of importance, but also 2, in order to reveal Fog of War. You just need 1 tiny unit to reveal Fog of War. I think that having vision is really important, and so if people are having a bunch of little small armies, then it becomes more powerful to have an army that is entirely cavalry, because I believe that the movement speed of the slowest portion of your army is what gates its speed. So if you have a faster unit, this is going to be really good. And so by virtue of us having cavalry that's faster than average, we might be able to substantially outmaneuver people as a consequence of this, or have an easier time maneuvering. And so this is an interesting thing to think. I think that it's going to be likely also, if you want to cut supply lines, you do it with all cavalry units so that you can zip in, take the province capital, and then zip out. And so I do think that this plus 10% movement speed is good, but also +5 initiative. Initiative lets you get into the battle faster, and so you can get into the battle, start causing a bunch of morale damage before they even get to engage, and maybe get to rout them very, very quickly. Continuing on, we also have a unique infantry unit, which is going to have a kind of a similar theme, +2 initiative, do 10% more morale damage, and take 10% less morale damage. These units enable a Swedish army to have the possibility of quickly and decisively winning battles in the Age of Absolutism, which was a time period in which Sweden had its military success historically. Now, we know that we're going to have better military units in Absolutism, so it's possible we want to construct a strategy as it relates to choosing our technology in the various ages, where we invest heavily in military in that age and try and really leverage it, knowing we'll have access to better units. But continuing on here, while you get these units from advances, there are plenty of other advances that Sweden has access to. Some of these include the following: always attack. I do believe this is the icon for the Age of Absolutism, plus 20% infantry power. This is really strong to have on game opening. Very, very, very strong. We also have the Kung och Riksdag. I'm not sure what age this is, if that's the age of is that... Okay, I don't know what age that is. I don't know if that's Renaissance or what. But possible government reforms +1, very strong. The government reform in general is more powerful than a tech, I think, and so this represents a really big power spike relative to its cost, which is, of course, researching one technology, a quality government involved by both the king and the estates. We also have the Kungliga Postverket, which is going to give distance cost to capital -5%, and this is kind of an interesting modifier, because this is a modifier that is going to get more powerful the more of it you have, and that is going to decrease in power once you pass a certain threshold. And that's kind of like a lot of words, but the distance that you have to travel, or the distance cost to travel from one location to another, base is 40. A gravel road decreases it to 20. If you stack enough distance cost capital modifiers, what will happen is you will reduce it to a floor of 1. And so if we have a flatland that has no penalties to distance cost capital, and we get -95% distance cost capital, it will just cost 1, and additional distance cost capital won't make it cost any less. But this 1, moving it from 1 down to 1 is really, really powerful. And so being able to really, really cut it down low is quite strong, and effectively the more of this modifier you have, the more valuable it is, because the first 50% will cut your distance from 10 or 20 to 10, and the second 50%, which in terms of your perspective is a -50% decrease, but the second 50%, for example, if you were to get up to 100, or the second 45% will cut you by 90%, going down from 10 to a singular one. So relativistically speaking, getting more of these modifiers is good. However, past that, it's not going to be useful, except There are other modifiers that increase distance cost to capital, and so if you have those modifiers, additional distance cost to capital will be useful. And so moving into woodlands, or moving through woodlands rather, I think it's woodlands, not forests, plus 25% distance cost to cap, or distance to traverse that, kind of a locational move. And so with that in mind, this is going to be an interesting modifier, because it is going to be one where stacking a lot of it's good, and then it kind of slows down a little, but it's still kind of okay. In either case, I do think that this is a really good thing to have on a tech, pardon the tangent on distance. I think this is a really good one to have on a tech. It allows you to have more control, and this is quite strong. And if you are anywhere near it on the tech tree, it's probably worth picking up. And then we have the Machina Nova, which we alluded to earlier, a little bit more copper output on that copper location, where we have plus 250%. I think that this stacks additively, so it's just 283% rather than multiplicatively. If it's multiplicatively, that's insane, but it also gives this tools output bonus. And I do think that when you are looking through your unique advances, you're kind of looking for finished goods bonuses, because this is something you're going to have a comparative advantage in. And while there are other things that are going to give tools output bonuses, this informs maybe a strategy where you want to, in particular, try and unlock better PMs and buildings that produce tools. So in the Age of Exploration, you might be wanting to commit to the administrative tree, which, if I recall correctly, has the workshop for tools. And you're doing this because, relative to other countries, you can produce tools more effectively. If you can produce tools more effectively, you can drop the price of tools within your own market while still having tools places profitable more easily. And then once you drop the price, you can then use trade to leverage it for even more value. And I think getting to thresholds where you can push a lot of trade is going to be really valuable, because trade effectively creates more money in terms of how trade is calculated as it relates to your price in your market, because trade per buy and sell order underinforms the price in your market, which allows you to push more trade and makes trade more valuable. And so I think that finding anything that gives you an advantage in anything is going to really make you want to take that section of the tech tree. And so for every age that has a tools building in it, you're probably going to want to take that section of the tech tree, or at least be a lot more inclined to take that section of the tech tree rather than taking a ride in the loud car outside, because you will have an advantage in that, and the 10% is multiplicatively effective with a better production method. Advances alone do not always give enough flavor. We, of course, are all about flavor. If you had something delicious between Saturday and today, when we did our last Flavor Friday on it wasn't on a Tuesday, it was on a Saturday, but comment what you had below. So there are plenty of dynamic historical events as well. While Sweden starts with historical Saint Eric the Holy, there are others presented as well in the game. After this event, closer to the start of the game, where we get a Bridget of Sweden that she first appears, these are a lot of words we can't pronounce, so we're just going to say Brigitta criticized King Magnus. A woman of the nobility, Brigitta claims that she has had visions from God. She is one of the most pious women in our country, with pilgrimages to several holy sites. So when she accuses the king of not being good enough a Christian, or even accusing him of homosexuality, many listens. I'm pretty sure that this should just be listen, but maybe they listens. Eventually, after she dies, you get an event where you can canonize her, and this is going to give you a holy site, a little bit of approval, this type of thing. I think the holy site gives you a persistent bonus of some kind, and so this is going to be nice. Some of the other 60 unique historical events include the following. We get the Silver Mine of Sala, where this is going to be an event. As Europe strides towards modernity, the voracious demand for silver continues to grow. Notably, in terms of the trade strategy of nations, they were trying to, up until around the time of Adam Smith, accumulate as much gold and silver as possible. Fueling trade and currency. In the heart of the Kingdom of Sweden, the discovery of a substantial silver deposits in Sala has caught the attention of the crown. To offer perspective, base price of silver, 8. So that is going to be quite powerful, considering the base price of a lot of goods, or the average price of kind of a lot of goods, is like 2 to 3. But this is going to give you a lot of opportunities for profitable RGOs. The mines promise immense wealth, potentially capable of bolstering Sweden's financial standing on the continent. Is that contingent? No, it's continent. Shout out to sunglasses. However, the mining of the precious metals is fraught with challenges, from flooding the tunnels to the risk of cave-ins, requiring substantial investment of skilled labor. We do get to change our raw good to silver, which is kind of an interaction we were aware was possible, but we haven't seen it yet. We will get the Walloons in Sweden. This is going to be an event where we will have a bit of migration going on, which is quite powerful, and then we will get the founding of Gothenburg, which is going to turn a location of ours that is rural into a town, changes the name to Gothenburg. It gains 0.5 development. This is roughly half a year's worth of development, but if the terrain's not very good, it could represent even more, and then it will give us more prosperity, and we will get, for 24 months, a bit of migration coming in, which is also going to be quite valuable. It's notable that the migrating pops are burgers, which are an already promoted pop, which is something that is also quite valuable. So you can get started right away on building production buildings and know that you will have the labor coming in to be able to employ them. So it's kind of an interesting nuanced thing, where a lot of times when you construct a town, the burgers aren't going to promote up fast enough. You don't necessarily want to push it super fast on getting new buildings. Here in this instance, that is going to be something you will maybe want to do. And then we have Olaf Rootbook publishes Atlantica. Botanist, architect, historian, astronomer, and musician, sounds like a generalist. Olaf Rootbook was an academic jack of all trades, but above all else, he was a romantic and a patriot. His life's work was the Atlantica, a massive history in which he claimed that Sweden was in fact the mythical city of Atlantis. A massive history which he claimed that Sweden was Atlantis. Due to Rudbuck's outstanding reputation in the learned nature of his discourse, the grandiose work was surprisingly well received. All cultures, the professor claimed, originated in Sweden. A rather convenient situation, but we will see that it will give us plus 15 legitimacy, a bit of cultural influence, and we will also see a magnus opus created, which is going to be quite nice for us. What is also going to be nice is tomorrow, St. Dave will be talking with us about how unit graphics work. Although we did not get a happy salutation at the end of the Flavour Tuesday, which is a bit unfortunate. But just wanted to remind people that you can wishlist this game, which they claim is called Europa Universalis 5. We know that it's called Previous Rune Saliva. We know that Europa Universalis 5, it's an anagram of Previous Rune Saliva, because why else would you, put the effort of getting a bunch of graphics, having this big reveal, if not to deceive everyone and trick them into thinking the name of the game was Europa Universalis 5. But you can wishlist Europa Universalis 5 or Europa Universalis 5 on Steam right now if you want to receive news and updates and this type of thing on the game. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and other than that, have a Flavour Friday on a Tuesday.